If you dream of your motorcycle, if your day isn't complete without some time in the saddle, if all you need is the open road and a full tank of gas, well, you've come to the right place, because this is Throttled, and it's starting now. Here is your host, Kevin McKinney.
All right, welcome back to Throttled, everybody. We're live once again. It's been hit or miss here the last few weeks. Chris is adjusting his camera a little bit, and but we're glad to be back with you guys. Looking forward to another good episode, and I think we've got a pretty good crew here today. So who do we have with us, you might ask, because I know that's bated breath. This week we've got our kind of main four, I guess you'd say. We got Larry, Tom, and Chris, along with myself. Gentlemen, I'll let you fight it out I'll let you fight it out to see who goes first. How are you gentlemen doing today?
Go, Larry.
Woohoo! I'm doing great. It's great to be here. Got some good riding in this week, and I'm looking forward to the show. How about you guys? Tom?
Doing well. It's a fine evening, and I think we have some good topics to discuss tonight.
And Chris?
And I am doing well as well. Yeah, that kind of rolls off the tongue. But yeah, looking forward to the show tonight.
Awesome. Well, who's been able to go catch some riding here last week?
You know, I haven't. Let me just jump in. I'm just thinking about how ironic this is. You know, on my podcast, the most recent episode I released was on heated gear and the heated gear that I use so I can ride all year, even in the cold. Mm-hmm. And this weekend, you know, it's gotten kind of cold on and off for us here in Long Island. And this weekend was basically 30s both days. And I have to admit, somewhat ashamedly, I just wasn't feeling getting on the bike. So I found other things to do around the house and whatnot.
So wait a minute. Let me get this straight. Are you saying that you didn't ride?
I'm saying that I didn't ride. Yeah, even though I had the heated gear and I could have done it, I just found other things to do. I had some stuff to do around the house, covering air conditioning units and stuff like that. So no riding for me, unfortunately.
Well, you have my pity.
I thank you.
Yeah. How about you, Tom?
No, this was a heavy travel week for me, so I got one day of running errands. That was about it. So, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 miles, that was it. But I did log several thousand miles in the air, if that counts at all, but not on a bike.
It doesn't.
No, not really.
No, not at all.
So I sat on lots of planes for a long time.
Were you at least watching motorcycle movies in the air?
No.
Yeah, no credit, sorry.
Okay, well, this is very sad.
So it's up to you to Larry to bring us home.
All right,
do all the riding for us.
All right. Well, Kevin may have something to contribute as well, but I did do some riding this week. I rode my frequent Marin ride earlier in the week, and then today, and while I did that ride, I did do some practicing in a parking lot. I was doing U-turns mostly and circles. But today I went to a parking lot in Sausalito, business parking lot that was, the business was closed, so the parking lot was pretty empty. And I was able to set up some cones, and do that kind of 3-foot offset S thing through the cones. And it was actually very interesting. I started off consistently missing after the second cone. I got the first 2 cones okay, and then after that I would just go on. And that was because I was too stiff on the bike. And so I kept doing it. And amazingly, by after about 15, 20 minutes of doing it, I was able to negotiate the cones easily. I was relaxed on the bike, and I was able to weight, the bike as I'm going into the turns, and it became easy, which just astounded me. What seemed so hard and difficult when I started became easy and natural towards the end. And I found that when I was making U-turns and doing circles towards the end, I was able to turn my head around much further so that I was looking way ahead of where I was going. And, the bike was sort of following my head. It was amazing how doing the exercises loosened me up on the bike and made everything easier. And so I really highly recommend doing something like this on a regular basis, just to loosen you up on the bike and get you more comfortable doing these kind of maneuvers, which I think translates for me. Just riding the bike normally, I just felt so much more relaxed on it than I was when I started. So those were my rides for the week, and I'm planning to do at least a couple of practices a week because I want to get back to Brian and move up to the next level in the Moto Jitsu. What is that? Yellow belt or something?
I forget. Blue belt,
yeah.
I think. I forget the order.
Oh, the brown belt. But
So, Larry, what was your epiphany that made you loosen up?
it was just practicing, just keeping at it and getting each time. The more I rode it, the more confident I became. The better I became with my clutch, for one thing. So I was able to use finer clutch control, and I wasn't as anxious about dropping the bike as I was when I started, and that loosened me up. It's just like almost anything. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, it becomes more muscle memory and less thinking, and you start to relax. So for me, there wasn't really an epiphany. It was really a gradual process of doing it over and over again and becoming more confident and more relaxed as I was doing it. So
cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
Yeah, so when you're ready, Larry, I recently saw one of Fast Eddie's videos where he demonstrates practicing U-turns and figure eights on a steep hill. So since you have access, right, to plenty of steep roads, hills, and stuff in San Francisco. So when you're ready, you can graduate up to that.
Even in Marin, but I will say that not so much in this parking lot, it was a little bit, but in the other parking lot that Brian and I used, one direction was uphill and the other direction was a little downhill, and I noticed a distinct difference. It was so much easier doing it on the downhill leg than on the uphill, because on the uphill you had to exert more clutch control.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Now your next level too is I forgot to mention I had a class last weekend. So do those U-turns several times with an audience judging you. And knowing that what you do, they're going to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah. I'm for me, it really has to be muscle memory in order for me to be able to perform like that. And so, but I do think that if every time I go out, if I do practice this, even just for a few minutes, it's definitely going to help me, control the bike better and feel more relaxed.
Cool.
Yeah. So what about you, Kevin?
Well, no riding. And here's like I could have went for a ride today, and I decided to get that show out and try to get caught up. And we'll talk about the reason why I was trying to get caught up here in just a minute. And then, but I didn't get any riding in. It was a couple of times, like I said, I had opportunities, and my big issue it has just been weather and cold. I mean, Tuesday or Wednesday we had lows down in the 20s, and that's a big no for me there. I don't have the heated gear, and then when you're looking at okay, I'm going to wear the heated gear, I'm going to do all this stuff, then you get to work, you got to get out of it all and put it someplace. And where I'm at now, I have it's a open office, and they have what they called dog bones, right? So where the desks kind of curve into each other, and from the top they look like a dog bone, like what you would expect like a cartoonist to draw, like a dog bone. Mm-hmm. And they've got end caps. So think about the round part of the bone at the very end. I have an end cap, so I have enough space on my desk for a laptop and that's it. Like I barely have room for cups or a pad of paper or notepads. I mean, it's very tiny little amount of space that I have, and I actually have no other space or anything to hang up jackets or extra clothes or anything like that. And so if I were to have to come into the building and take all that stuff off in the bathroom, I'd have to go back out to the bike, which I have to park, like 2 city blocks away. It's just, I don't see that happening anytime soon unless I can find another way around it. Plus, I don't have heated gear in general, so that's also an issue that I have. So, yeah, I'm going to have to just say, I wimped out on that one. And then when I did have some opportunities to ride, I haven't taken them. What I was able to do, and I don't know if I talked about it with you guys. I don't think I did. I did go pick up the little blue TTR 90 that Rodney and the guys are working on, and they were having some fits out of it. Thought they got it completely worked out, and the bike runs great. Everything works fine. But let me tell you, Yamaha, normally I have great respect for Yamaha and the way they build their bikes. Well, the TTR 90 has a electric start on it. The problem is the battery's not much bigger than a D-cell battery and seems to die. I mean, like you could put it in, start it up, and then by the time I got home, it was starting to act like the battery was dead. And this is after Rodney and them have changed out a bunch of stuff. Pretty much anything that would be drawing power was checked, and we can't find it. And so I'm a little perturbed at the bike because I should have taken the fact that when a guy sold it to me, he said, "We just kickstart it." I should have taken that as there's probably an issue with that electric start system. But what lesson learned, I guess, is what we'll say there. But the kids are excited about it. We went out afterwards and purchased not all the riding gear. We got my oldest and my middle kid a helmet, chest protection, gloves, goggles, and I think that's it. When we got to the boots, it just was, we couldn't afford the boots that day. So once we get back from our vacation and the new month hits and budget comes kicking back around, we may go finish out and get them both a pair of boots. And I'm hoping like a Black Friday sale will come across, and we'll be on our way. That's actually one thing I was going to do is send Rodney a text and say, hey, if you see any kids' boots in these sizes, which I don't have with me, let me know, and we'll maybe he can order them for me, and I can get them better than cycle gear prices. But that's kind of what we're sitting at right now. It was a fun day with them because we were just able to kind of just sit in the shop and try on helmets and just see their excitement level. I enjoyed that a lot. So while I haven't been riding, I have been gearing up, so to speak. That's kind of been what's been going on with me. I know last week I wasn't here because the power was out. That's a crazy, I was told a car hit something. I never saw it when I went out that night, but we didn't get power back till like 9 p.m., which is about the time I think they were shutting it down for the evening. But then like the rest of the neighborhood who had power lost power till like 3 in the morning. So I guess we got the better end of that deal overall because that was one of the nights it got down to like 30 degrees. So definitely got the better end of that deal. But yeah, that's been about it. But let's go ahead and transition and talk a little bit about our schedule here the next few weeks. Most likely this will be the last live show for, let's see. This is the last live show for 2 weeks. So the show, I don't have my calendar up. Was it the 24th and the one after Thanksgiving here in the States? So that'll be the 24th show and the December 1st show. The 24th show, we definitely will not be live. December 1st, We may or may not be doing a live show. It really just depends on if I can get back in time, get things situated to where I can call the day a day and get ready for the show. However, I also know that when we haven't talked about it with the guys. I earlier said, hey, we're not going to be having a show. I'm kind of still thinking we're not going to be having a show, but we might surprise everybody out there. We'll have to wait and see. But and I'm gonna leave it up to the other guys whether or not they do a recording during those 2 weeks or not. And just kind of, guys, if you would just keep me in the loop. Like, hey, yeah, we did a recording tonight. It doesn't have to be on Sunday if it's not live. So whatever day y'all can get together. Ted may be interested in joining back up, or whoever else you want to pull in. It'll be an audio only show probably. So it should be a lot of fun. And Chris and Tom and Larry have done a great job when I haven't been here. And that's kind of why we went to this new format to allow more, I don't know. I don't want to say diversity. More consistency with the show recordings. I just have to do a better job of getting them delivered. But we'll come up with a schedule. Stay tuned to our Facebook and Twitter accounts, and you'll be able to see that. And hopefully, once I get the information, I'll have time to pull up my phone and type it in there real quick. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on there.
All right. Well, Chris and Tom and I can talk after the show maybe and see what we can arrange. Chris and I did do a show last week. Did you get that recording?
I did.
Kevin?
I got the audio all prepped and everything. And then I got to work on the show notes the next few days and get that out. I got the one previously that we did scheduled to be released. And the one that we did a few weeks ago where you and I both were out, that one went out yesterday. So I'm really getting caught up. Work has been the new job, and we did a week of training, and then this week was kind of demanding. So I was doing a little bit of extra work there, and hopefully, I think things will start settling out once I get probably be back from the holidays, and it should be easy peasy back to our normal type of thing. Of course, it doesn't. The power outage stuff like that doesn't hurt. I mean, it doesn't help, but just the time in the evenings to do the shows here the last few weeks have been a little rough. But those are first world problems. They're not motorcycle problems, so we don't need to worry about those right now.
Okay, good enough. I'll also reach out to Ted and see what his availability will be. Maybe Brian as well. So.
All right.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. So, do you want to do some of the news items?
Well, before we do that, let's go ahead and give a shout out to our Throttle crew members: Rodney, Nick, John, Alex, David, Ralph, Paul, Stephen, Lloyd, Chad, Michael, Dan, TC, Jorge, Randy, Sean, James, Tyler, Paul, Jeff, and Chuck. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. We wouldn't be here if you guys weren't helping us. And if you are interested in helping support the show on a value per value basis, you feel like you're getting something out of it and want to help contribute and just keep the lights on, visit us at the website, throttledpodcast.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and you should see a Patreon link. If you click on that link, it'll help get you everything out there. By the way, Steven, I think it was Steven, I got your new address. Just been too busy to resend out that sticker packet or stickers. Oh my God, I think one now. So apparently, here's a pro tip for anybody out there podcasting and you have stickers. Don't let your kids know where you keep them when they have to take stickers to school, because all your stickers disappear. All your brand new stickers disappear.
Well, listen, that's good for getting young people interested in motorcycling.
Yes, absolutely.
This is true, but
you can't complain too much.
We're up a little bit late for most second graders, I think, to
true
to benefit much. So, but yeah,
good
so
point.
that's kind of a little bit of what's been happening here. So yeah, I'll get you out. I got the primary sticker, the huge one that we've had for a while, but all my little, I made smaller stickers that I think is about the size of what most people do with the new Rounded logo, and was really excited about it. And but I didn't make that many, and they took them all of them. I only made like 30, and they took them all. So I'm gonna put in another order once I get back and get my head back on straight.
So if we see a bunch of BMX bikes with our stickers on them, I will know where they came from.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. But anyway, thanks guys for doing that. I really appreciate you supporting the show, and if you'd like to join, we would love to have you as a Throttled crew member. And I actually want to, in the new year, when kind of the news slows down, have a big Throttled crew, I don't know, hangout, something to where we just kind of get on and chat or something. So, well, let me ask you, before we get into the news, somebody posted up a topic, and this was, I think, the chain drive topic. So this was the discussion topic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Motorcycles have been manufactured for 117 years, and I have to sneeze, so I'm waiting on that to hit me. Why are chains still the leading final drive mechanism? Where's the innovation? Cost, ease of changing gears in racing, efficiency, kind of what's up. All right. I have some initial thoughts. So how do you guys want to have this discussion?
Well, look, can I kick this off? Because I threw that out there.
Kick it off.
And I guess I was watching I don't know, a YouTube thing, and it was talking about Royal Enfield being, the oldest brand still around, started manufacturing in, I think, 1902. So started looking at that as, okay, 117 years ago. Yes, I know we have belt drives. We have some shaft drives on a few bikes, but 90+% of the bikes still have chain drives. And I've been away from chain drive bikes now for about 10 years. And I got to tell you, that's one of the things that holds me back from looking at bikes that have a chain, as to just the maintenance. And it got me wondering as to, with all the innovation of electronic suspension, braking that has been done, we really haven't done anything with the final drive system. And I know it's a cost thing, but why haven't manufacturers really addressed that much at all? Mm-hmm. So for those of you that have been riding, considerably longer than any thoughts on this?
Well, I have some thoughts. I did actually read an article. I don't remember if it was in Cycle World or it was some other, about this very topic, and why are chain drives still the most popular kind of linkage. And the reasons that they mentioned had to do with, of course, cost. Chains are probably the cheapest way to go. Also, if you're racing and you want to change gears for the track, and depending on the kind of track, it's easiest to do it with a chain drive. So, the ability to change your gear ratios relatively easily is another reason why chain drives continue to persist. And also, of the major kinds of drives available, chain, belt, or shaft, the chain drive is the most efficient. It transmits the most energy to the rear wheel of the systems that are available. So, in spite of the fact that it appears to be archaic, they still have their advantages. And interestingly, and not coincidentally, if you look at bicycles, they still have chain drives. All bicycles run on chain drives, except for a very, very few that have adopted belt drives. But 99% of bicycles run on chain drives. Well, and I think it's for the same reason that I mentioned. Modern chain drives, do have the O-ring seals on them, so they require somewhat less frequent lubrication than the old kind of chains. But they still do require more maintenance than the other types of drives, so they have their advantages and drawbacks. And frankly, I'm having a hard time thinking, except electric bikes.
Yeah, they're still using chains as well.
Yeah.
I think, trying to think which manufacturer may use a belt. I think Zero had a belt on some of the bikes. And
Yeah.
so, all right, so I get that for the racing. But for street bikes, and are completely maintenance free, other than, okay, I know you got to change them out, 25, maybe 30,000 miles. They've been proven to handle the horsepower and the torque. Why haven't they replaced chains as the most prevalent option?
Okay, I think you cut out. What drive can they handle the torque with? What are you talking about?
Belt.
Belt?
On the belt
Belt.
drives,
So,
yeah.
so it comes down to efficiency and gearing and everything like that. You can do more to me with a chain. It's easier to handle by yourself, and a lot of people say that, right? I don't necessarily know if that's true if you know what you're doing, but when you look at, okay, the chain is the most efficient delivery of power. You lose the least amount of power converting it to chain than you do any other drive system. The belt loses more than chain. I was trying to find the ratios. There was an article that we read years ago, and I couldn't find it on the site or where we were finding it, that actually gave a shaft drive is like only 80%. You only get 80% of the power
Efficient,
to the
yeah.
rear wheel.
Yeah.
Whereas I think a belt was, higher than that, and then a chain was actually the highest and everything. But I think it's also the cheapest and most understood. It's one of those that's simple, it's cheap, and it does the job well. Belts have their place, right? That you don't have to worry about oil and grit on them as much, but they wear out just as fast. And you may not be able to notice, or you may not pay attention to a belt like you do a chain. Think about it in your car, right? I mean, how many times you worry about a belt in your car? Whereas a shaft drive, to me, you lose a ton of power, and it's noticeable on the Tenere for sure. I think BMW does a better job getting the power to the rear wheel than the Tenere does. But I've got 22,000 miles on that bike and nothing. Haven't even thought about it, and it's probably due. So next time I take it in to Rodney's guys, and they'll handle. And yeah, Rodney's remind me of something here. The belts can't handle the torque of the modern sport bike. And it depends on the belt. But if you go for the same width belt and everything, because you got to remember, that's running right by your leg with everything else going on there. So to fit it in the same amount of space, that same width, it may not be able to handle it, and it may handle it for a little while. But what kind of lifespan are you going to get out of it?
Well, it may not the horsepower, but torque definitely, because you figure all of the V-twin cruisers are all driven by belts, and they're all putting out now 100 to 120 foot-pounds of torque. Now it's chain drive, but the Diavel originally was a belt-driven bike. I think its first iteration. So I'm not so sure about that. But the main thing was I get all of the things with the chain. I still don't like the maintenance of them, but I was just curious as to where why someone hasn't invented some better way of doing it in 100 years.
But it's not like chains haven't gotten better. They're sealed where they weren't so much earlier on. There has been a lot of improvements. You get a lot more distance out of a chain now than you did 20, 30 years ago. To where, really it's if you keep it spaced right to where you're not screwing up your sprockets, that they can last for much longer than when I was a kid going through them.
Yeah, but you still got to go and lube it and clean it every 500 or so, and you still got to adjust the rear somehow and make sure you're aligned. And I'm a proponent of shafts. I like the shaft drive on my bike, but
you and
I
I
was
being
just
on
looking for something better.
Yeah, you and I being on a you being on a GS and me being on a Tenere, the last time I thought about my shaft drive was when I read this question. I mean, other than that, I can't really tell you when the last time I thought about it. I just go by the manual, and the manual says, "Hey, you need to have this done." I'm like, "Oh, hey, check that out," and that's it. But it's not like hey, every 500, every 2,000. I mean, it's like 20,000 mile intervals. Before you really have to worry about it.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing I like about
Chris, you drive a chain bike, so you started off right on chains. Any challenge?
I mean, no challenge. What I like about the chain, and admittedly, it's a pain. Like it is. Like it's not like, oh boy, like whoop-de-doo, I get to clean and lube the chain again, every 500 miles or so. But on the flip side, what I like about it is it forces me to actually take a look at the bike. It's like I got to put up on the rear stand and then get down and have a look at things. And so it's just a better chance for me to kind of give the bike a once over and see how things look. In fact, it was when I did the service on the chain for the Vulcan, I noticed that I had some rust developing, in where the swing arm, pivots, in the frame. So again, would I rather not have the maintenance? Yeah, but I guess if you have to have the maintenance, to me, that's kind of a plus side. The other thing I'm thinking, and this is probably kind of minor, although maybe when it comes to, high performance bikes like race bikes and stuff, it matters, is a chain does allow you a narrower drive, mechanism on the rear wheel than a belt, right? It's probably half, like a chain is probably half the width of a belt. So when you're talking about close tolerances and you want things tight in, maybe that's a reason. It's interesting too that, as far as I know, some of the first motorcycles, motorized bicycles were belt drive. And in fact, I remember seeing, I guess, between Barber and this Motorcyclopedia, which is up in Newburgh, New York, they have examples of some of the first bikes that, they were actually leather belts, right, with no teeth or anything, which is really interesting. So you had some kind of drive on the front, and then it was just what do you call it? Not a gear, but on the back wheel, you just had
just a larger
like a disc,
a larger
with
wheel,
a channel, like a round channel, and the belt ran in there, and you had to have things tight enough that it would actually not slip, and drive the bike. So it's just kind of interesting to see how things have changed.
Okay, so we have made a slight improvement from the leather belt. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But to your point, Tom, like I get what you're saying. I mean, it does seem like that is an area that there's not been much innovation. Off the top of my head, I'm like, I don't know what you would do to innovate. And so that means, well, there's the opportunity for, the next person thinking outside the box, and it'd be interesting too. Maybe there's things going on, maybe people are experimenting with things, but they're just not proven yet and haven't been released. I mean, I guess if there was anything that was kind of finalized, we would have seen some patents and reported and stuff like that. But
well, there, a couple of things. I mean, keep in mind that there has been progress. I mean, we started off with chains and leather belts, if you will, moved along to belt drives and then shaft drives. And now there are hubless drives on electric bikes.
That is true. I forgot about that. That Swedish company that was making an electric hubless drive bike.
Right.
God, I would love one of those.
Yeah. It's actually a pretty spectacular looking bike. But it may or may not become more prevalent depending on how it works out. But I think that that is an example of people trying a different kind of motor and drive mechanism for bikes. So I think that there has been a progression through different types of drives, and maybe we'll end up with something innovative like a hubless wheel or something else. Who knows? But in the meantime, chains do seem primitive, but by God, they work.
Yeah, I know. And actually, Paul in the chat just put up a good thing as far as, perhaps this is the way that some electric bikes or bicycles are set up as far as where the direct drive or the motor is actually in the wheel hub itself.
The hub, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
Swedish bike, yeah. So that may become, if it works out well, that may become a new, you know, pattern for connecting up the drive mechanism. But I don't see that for combustion engine bikes. But there are many who feel that combustion engine bikes are going to go the way of the dinosaur.
Okay, well, I'll keep looking out for that that next innovation, and hopefully keep me away from a chain.
That's actually ironic too, right? Being that gasoline engines run on dinosaurs. That's interesting that they're going to
go the way of the
dinosaur.
So again, and with modern chains, by the way, the 500 mile may not be, unless I suppose if you're going on dirt, it may be different. But for highway use, it's more like 1,000 miles between lubrications, according to my mechanic. So there is some progress in terms of decreasing the frequency.
Okay, well, like I say, I'm 10 years plus removed from having a chain bike, so things may have changed a little bit.
Changed. You get it?
The chains have changed.
See what he did here? See what he did there?
Pun
Now,
intended.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't one of the Curtis motorcycles they come out with, or somebody other than the Swedish, have a motor in both front and back hub?
Don't recall.
An electric bike, you mean?
It was an electric bike, and I remember them having. We talked about them having to almost like all-wheel drive properties because they had a electric motor in both front and back.
I just Googling.
Yeah, I'm doing the same.
I can't. For some reason, Curtis popped in my head, but that doesn't seem right. But I thought we talked about it, and it wasn't the Swedish bike. Another one you talked about, Swedish.
It's actually Finnish, I think.
Is it Finnish? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember talking about it, and maybe it is the same, but I thought it was. Honestly, I thought it was one of the smaller American companies that also had something like that. Oh well.
No.
We'll do some research on it, and you guys can report back on it in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
Well, we beat this one to a pulp.
Yeah, I think we're ready to move on. All right, so out of our news topics, somebody pick one.
Well, Tom, did you make the comment about the scooter?
I did as a scooter owner. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I thought this was kind of interesting to me. The Italian company has come out with a new scooter, which they introduced at EICMA, I think, and it's the 2020 Ital Jet dragster scooter. So it's got some pretty gnarly looking components. It looks like sort of a transformer in some ways. It's definitely a naked looking scooter. And Tom mentioned that it doesn't seem very practical. Scooters are supposed to be practical. And, I'm raising the question, well, why the heck do scooters have to be practical? Why can't you have a sexy, advanced scooter that just is scooter-esque, but still sexy and modernistic. So this is one of those, and I just thought it was interesting. It was stretching the limits of motorcycling and scooterdom.
All right, so you guys remember Confederate motorcycles, right?
Yes.
Oh,
sure.
Yeah. This looks like what would happen, I think, if Confederate motorcycle quickly came up with a concept bike for a scooter.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, behind the front fairing, if you take the front fairing off, it screams Confederate to me.
It's in part it's those circular, I don't know. I guess those frame mounting points, right?
It's got everything's on display. It's got this hub steering front suspension. So it's definitely different looking bike, and it may not be something that you would choose for practical reasons, but still, it looks like it might be a blast to ride.
So we're looking at a 4-stroke single 200cc displacement, 19.8 horsepower, liquid cooled, fuel injected, fully automatic.
Well, it comes with 2 engines, I think.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
125.
That was the
200,
that was the 125.
the high performance model.
No, that was
So
the
the
200. 200cc, then they have a
that's the-
125
yeah.
as well.
So the 200 puts out 20 horsepower and 12.5 foot-pounds of torque, and a double overhead cam, liquid cooling, CVT, so it's twist and go.
Those are respectable numbers for a 200cc bike.
Yeah.
So I look at it definition, and this came up on some of the scooter forums as far as what's the definition of a scooter.
Mm-hmm.
So my motorcycles, I always look at I always have a view of the practicality. So to me, especially with a scooter, it has to be able to, it's a runabout in town, and it has to be able to carry stuff. So you have to have space under the seat. You have to have a place to carry cargo in the back.
Well, there's space,
but
just nothing around it.
It's nothing around. Yeah, you got a frame and such. So while it's interesting looking, it doesn't fit, I guess, my definition or some of the common definitions of a scooter. But this is definitely a design exercise that, it looks neat.
So here, and maybe I'm just not seeing it in the pictures. Where do your feet go on this thing?
It's got four
boards.
Yeah, it's got floorboards for the
Not obvious. I guess the black kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Trellis. Yeah.
And if you look right below the front spring there in the middle,
I guess they're just very close into the frame, so it's just hard. It's hard to see. Like
you could have little feet.
But they do have floorboards, I think, and passenger seating, and like I said, this is a very interesting design, muscular. I would call it muscular.
And you're putting one skinny Italian up on that passenger seat then.
Skinny Italian. But don't scooters have the engines sort of attached to the rear swing arms?
Yep, and you could see it there. So the engine and the swing arm are a single unit.
Right. So that's part of the definition of a scooter.
It is in the CVT.
Yeah. Yep. Right. So I think this is a sexy, muscular looking design exercise for a scooter that doesn't necessarily have practicality in terms of storage. But may give the rider a certain kind amount of elan, and prestige, just in terms of riding such a edgy bike.
And if the Italians are nothing else, they are the pinnacle of style and design.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, but to me, it's interesting. I do favor scooters because I think that part of the future of motorcycling actually depends on the more widespread adoption of urban transit in the United States, and scooters are one major piece of that. So anything that can heighten the visibility of scooters, to me, is positive.
Chris, you got any words to add on here, or are you pretty much good?
Yeah, well, it's cool. I mean,
help me out here, Chris. Help me out.
I'm trying, Larry. If I could spit out my own words, tripping over my own tongue here. I think it's a cool looking vehicle. I definitely would ride one. I don't know if this is practical at all, but I'm thinking put some knobbies on it and let's take them in the woods. Like,
there you go.
Ripping in the dirt. But, anything to me, yeah, like I think Tom said, it's kind of a style. It's like a style project. Like, what can we do? How can we shake things up a little bit? This is an exclusive kind of thing, right? They said 499 units of each are going to be made, and they're going to be numbered uniquely. So, I'm guessing they're going to go for a pretty penny, and it's the kind of thing collectors are going to buy, or people that just want a new toy or whatever. So it like, to me, it's all good. Like, it's one of the last episodes I mentioned, it feels to me like there's lots of life coming into the industry. There's lots of all these concept bikes and new bikes coming out. And I think it just adds to that excitement and interest. So whether it just brings in new scooter riders or just gets more people interested, or just, I don't know, like this is the kind of thing, I'll tell you, it just occurred to me. This is the kind of thing I could see showing up on like the cover of GQ, or, you know what I mean? Like non-motorcycle magazines, because it is just like a cool piece. It's a cool style, design. And so maybe that's a good thing right there, as it just gets more exposure. Maybe the New York Times puts it on, the cover.
Or MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art. It might.
That's a good point too. Yeah.
This is as far a departure as your grandfather's styled Vespa as you can get. So right. I could see that.
Yeah. And for a mere 499 euros, you can put down a deposit for the bike. They don't give the price, but you can get into it for 499.
Right.
All right. So let's transition from scooters to whatever I was looking at before my screen just shut down. The Ace of Spades, like the name, by the way. This is the 2020 SWM Ace of Spades 500 first look retro mod. I don't know what that really means, but retro mod style, like restored, modified. I don't know what retro mod means.
So let's see what Google says.
But what this is speedy working motors from northern Italy, producing, which is what they're best known for, is affordable dual sports, adventure, and supermoto motorcycles. And the company,
I think retro is probably a misspelling. They probably meant retro.
Retro, okay, because because it is a very retro style scrambler-esque bike here, right? But the SWM actually dates back to the 1970s, and operated in part by the Shinry Group of China since 2014. But they're bringing their Ace of Spades, and again, retro mod is in the article. So they must really like that S over there. But anyway, it looks like a retro modern custom, as it sits in the showroom floor. Powered by 445cc single cylinder. This is air and oil cooled single overhead cam motor. I have to admit, from the looks of this bike, I like the looks of it a lot. It's very clean. It looks like if you wanted to roll up your sleeves and crack it open, you wouldn't have a problem with it, 4.4 gallon fuel tank topped off. It's only 345 pounds. And I really like the name. I think they should have done more of that in the painting, like put spades all over it or something, like a big spade or something. And maybe I'm just knowing that picture.
Yeah. So it is a kind of retro-looking bike, and it's got knobby tires, and it looks like maybe it's designed to do a little bit off-road, scrambler-esque look to it, with the muffler elevated. So it's kind of I think it's a nicely styled bike, and it unfortunately is not going to be available in the U.S. But they encourage you to email the manufacturer and encourage them to import the bike here. The distributor apparently is located in the Mojave Desert, Motorman Distributing. So they have other bikes, SWM bikes that they do sell here, but this model not yet. I guess before getting too enthusiastic about importing it, I would like to see an actual review of the bike. But as a inexpensive wearable seems to have, a lot of modern features. Looks decent to me. What do you guys think?
I think it's would be interesting to see this in a Royal Enfield side by side on a test ride.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of those comparisons. I'd be interested to see how that plays out because it seems very Royal Enfield-esque.
Yeah, so I was just looking up retro mod and the several definitions of it. So basically, it's a older looking style or an older looking bike that's been restored with new parts. Given that this is a new bike, it's basically a marketing phrase that, I think every other manufacturer is using, the modern classic. So if that's Royal Enfield or what Triumph is doing or any other manufacturers, it's basically the same style. Let me have a bike that looks like it's from the 50s, 60s, but with modern running gear.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Chris, you've got probably the bike that's closest to this in the stable. What's your thoughts on it?
I don't know. Should I start calling my bike a Restro mod?
Please don't.
So
Please don't.
That's what I'm not sure about. Actually, so this is a full size bike, right? Because at first it almost looks to me like a Z125 or what do you call it, Honda
That's a
Bronco
500
kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a nice looking bike.
17-inch wheels.
Yeah.
So,
no, I was just looking at the wheelbase too, because the wheelbase on my bike is 58. This is 55, so it's just a little bit shorter. I don't know. It's a cool looking bike. Like I'd ride one. I agree. It does look Scrambler-esque. It's got a decent sized motor. Well, what is it? 28 horsepower.
28 horsepower, yeah.
Okay. So it's not, not a huge power monster or anything, but
single cylinder.
For a single cylinder. So I don't know. Not much more to say than that.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think this is a bike that you might want to use if you're doing urban type stuff and maybe a little bit of off-road.
Yeah.
It's not a bike that you would probably want to take on the highway for any length of time. So, but again,
is there a price given?
No. This bike and the Italojet dragster scooter, neither one of them had a price posted yet.
Well, this is it's not being imported yet. So,
okay.
All right, so question and for you guys. So here's a 500 that's making 28 horsepower that kind of looks like a modern classic, whatever you call the Restro. And then you had an ultra modern scooter that we just looked at, which was a 200cc making 20 horsepower. Let's say they were both probably in the 5,000 price range, give or take a few hundred between them. Which would you buy?
Neither.
Well, I have a feeling the scooter's going to cost more than this thing, but
yeah, I would imagine.
I mean, if it was like, hey, you won a prize, pick one, and they equal it out to be the same price.
Which one?
With the same demand. I mean, the Ace of Spades is more. Well, it would be too small for me, really. I can see it as a fun kind of tool around town bike on, and it's just more my purview. I enjoy that type. The looks of that bike more, and that's basically without being able to ride either one of them. That's basically what I would go off of. Is I would enjoy that more. I think.
Yeah,
Larry, which one?
It's a good question. Actually, I might be more inclined towards the scooter, because I think the scooter is going to turn more heads and get more questions and, get more people talking about it than this bike. And I'm not that interested in any off-road use. So, although as Chris pointed out, you could take the scooter off-road if you wanted to. Both small bikes are probably easy to ride. So, yeah, I think that.
All right, so that's 1 and 1. So, Chris.
Yeah, so I would say I'll be the tiebreaker here. So if it was a giveaway, like it was like, okay, you win one of these bikes.
Got to pick one. Yep.
Right. I would take the scooter for two reasons. One, I've got 2 motorcycles, and I think it would be cool to have something else in the collection, so a scooter would be nice. And this is probably the closest I would get to owning something that was Curtis-like looking.
So I'm going to give it. We're going to go with the scooter 3-1 because this looks like lots of other things on the road. And the scooter, as much as I downplayed the scooter for impracticality, if you're going to get an impractical bike, that was cool looking.
Fair enough.
All right, good. All right.
So should I point out that all the older guys picked the scooter?
You may point that out.
So just saying.
Just saying.
I would say maybe the older guys, but the ones who were young at heart.
The ones with more life experience, perhaps.
All right.
So, moving right along.
Fun game. All right, so let's look over, and I haven't actually, admittedly, been able to look at this one. The Arch KR-GT1 first ride.
Oh yeah. So this is Keanu's motorcycle company, the Arch Motorcycle Company, and they came out with a new model, a cruiser type bike, and it's in the $80,000 range. So
Nice.
it's something that we can all afford. It's a
Now, if you want to add this to the last thing about picking which bike out of the three of them, I'll take this one. Just for resale value.
Yeah, that it wasn't in the choice selection. So I thought it was interesting because they actually did test ride the bike, and it was interesting to me to see how this thing actually, rode in real time use. The guy rode it with Keanu Reeves, and I think the designer Hollinger, who is a lifelong rider, mechanic, and designer, and he and Keanu Reeves started the Arch Motorcycle Company. So they all rode together. So I'm not sure that this is a totally objective, impartial review of the bike. But nonetheless, he did actually put it on the road and give some opinions about it. He describes the bike as part cafe racer, part speedster, part cruiser, and muscle. And so, of course, it's a meticulously crafted bike with billet aluminum, steel, and carbon fiber, with top-tier components, and the central piece of the bike is actually the fuel tank, which is 2 fuel cell halves put together and painted with the Arch logo and all that kind of stuff. So the design of the bike sort of focuses on the tank. This bike has a 124 cubic inch S&S cycle V-twin, and it's really a gorgeous looking engine. It's designed to meet Euro 4 and current carbon EPA emission standards, so you can buy this bike with the utmost confidence. It's a 45-degree V-twin, and it's got about 122 horsepower with 122 pound-feet of torque at the rear wheel. So it's got a 2-into-1 header system with a carbon fiber muffler, and so on. You can bet that all the components on this bike, the 48 millimeter. Chris, how do you pronounce it? It's not Olin's. It is.
Oh, it is Erlins.
Erlins, yes. The Erlins fork. That's the Swedish pronunciation. Yes. So it's a bike that has what he calls a crazy stable feeling. It's in riding the bike, he finds. Oh, excuse me, I'm going to cough here. I'm turning off my mic for just a second.
All right, and somebody did ask in the chat. It is chain drive, just so you guys know.
It's a chain drive. Oh, and wait, and we do have to say, Arch does call this design retro modern. So apparently they haven't picked up on the retro mod phrase either.
Retro is a misspelling. I Googled.
I can't find it anywhere other than in that article. So.
Right. So this is a full-blooded, heavy-beating American V-twin, every bit as powerful as it sounds, with torque coming low and never petering out. This is not buttery smooth. This is a motorcycle that you will know that you're riding. And so this is a motorcycle for muscle bike aficionados. It's got a modern cockpit. And
Does
and
it? Does it?
Yeah.
Have you looked at it?
Yes.
LEDs.
LEDs.
Well,
yeah.
It's the retro part.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
that to me is horrible. Like,
Well, you've got a point. It's got the picture shows what look like red LEDs in a kind of primitive
like
dot.
1978.
Right.
Like, holy crap! That it,
Yeah.
19. I mean, it's. I'm hoping you can like connect your phone to this thing for $85,000. I expect something that looks better than that.
Yeah, my guess is that's a choice. Let me just take a look here.
No, so it's curious. Below the picture, the has the Arch marketing information. So it says the uncluttered cockpit features Moto Gadget Moto Scope Pro Digital Display with info shown in retro red LEDs.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah, that's.
I'm sure.
I want a TFT that if that's one of the modes, that's great. But no, and another thing while I'm on the look of it, here's like my overall look at this bike. This would be what I would expect a futuristic concept bike from 1982 to look like. That from the tail light to that cockpit, it's screaming 80s. The black, I just I don't know. That's if I were to ever take this bike, make it all red, change out take the funky red thing around the brake light and stuff, and actually make it like a nice LED light.
Okay, so that is an LED. That is an LED.
Yeah.
And
So
and it's an all metal fender. Go ahead.
But
John.
I think, Kevin, if you walked into, one of the things I
this is
picked up
true.
is that
Yeah, you're
if
right.
you walked into Arch with your 85,000, you can get it customized to what you want. It's a semi-custom bike. So
Yeah, you are
there are
absolutely
design
correct.
concepts that they'll change for the owner.
Yep.
Yeah, this isn't a mass-produced bike. This is definitely at the high-end niche. But I got to say, for 85,000, now you're competing against, you said the old Confederate. Now they went to Curtis is their new brand, but they sold their design. So the old Confederate bikes like the Wildcat are still being made. Curtis is now making their super high end all billet aluminum electric. They're all in that price range, in that 70 to 90,000 range. Not anything I'm going out to buy tomorrow, but if you want it on the impracticality scale per dollar, this is near the top.
So let me restate what I want to say is.
Yes, please.
I would want to change the cockpit, the tail light. I would want to get rid of the big ugly white arch thing on the tank and just have just arch, just the black, or actually make the black part where it says arch just white. And I'd put a racing stripe down it. Now, I think that simple, clean. I think it's a great bike. I like the design of the bike. I like the flow of the bike. It's appealing. There's just little nuances in this particular bike that they made that I'm just like, really? That's what you decided to put on Cycle World magazine?
Well, you of course, all the changes that you're talking about could easily be made, as
Yes.
Tom was pointing out.
Yeah.
This is a custom bike, and you can specify what you want.
Yeah.
But keep in mind that this is a bike that's designed to be a kind of a sport cruiser, and is similar to bikes like the Ducati Diavel or the Harley FXDR 114. Maybe similar to V-Rods of the past. It's that kind of bike, but it's they say that it's all of those things, and yet it's also none of those things. It takes burly American style performance to a level of its own. And if you don't like that, fine. You don't have to buy it. They apparently have no difficulty selling these bikes. So these guys are passionate, but they recognize that this bike might not be for everybody. However, the guy who tested it out did say that it was comfortable to ride. The seating position was good. The seat was well padded, and the engine performance and the brake performance of the bike was exemplary. So you are getting a well-designed piece of machinery for your $80,000. And this is a bike that you're not going to necessarily go touring on, but it is a bike that you can take out on the road, take it into the twisties, and show off to your friends.
So
right,
doing a quick Google. So that the dashboard that they use is available for €369, and as far as I could tell, that is the display. It's not switchable. Like, that's how it looks.
But maybe there's a different display you could get them to put in it.
That's possible. Like, I don't know. Maybe in this Motoscope Pro line, maybe they have other units, but the unit is just that one display. So I don't know. I mean, it's a nice looking bike. It's kind of funny because I know it's a thing, especially with like custom bikes and V-twins and stuff, to have the open space around the engine. But in this case, I just don't like it that much. There's too much open space for me, like too much air. But it's a nice bike, like with all the machine parts and whatever. I mean, it's beautifully constructed. Like you can see, there's a lot of care goes into making the parts. Yeah, I don't know. For $80,000, I don't know. I might have to go for a H2R, something like that.
So suffice it to say, we are not the target market.
Just suffice it to say.
So what do we do this? What if we all went in and threw, this still sounds like a ridiculous number, $20,000 each. And maybe we could talk them down to just 80 instead of 85. And we'll like keep it stored. I don't know. We'll like find a central garage that we'll rent out, and then we'll like take turns flying out and riding it, or something like that.
Centrally, we'll put it in Kansas. That's a great place.
Right. A lot of great riding roads out there.
Well, the bike is made in California, and if it needs any service, it's got to be in California. So I think that would be the most central place to put it.
I'll just take it to Rodney.
That would probably work too. Again, keep in mind that this is a sport cruiser type bike. So it's not a sport bike, not sport touring bike. This is a cruiser, and that has to be the kind of bike that you're into. Now, since I've ridden Harleys for quite a few years, I could certainly see myself enjoying riding this bike. Although, if I had to carry an extra jacket or sweater, I'd be in trouble. So for me,
that's no different than your highfalutin scooter you'd go for earlier.
This is true, but the highfalutin scooter is not going to cost me $80,000. I can afford a backpack.
But Keanu didn't make the scooter. Keanu made this.
True.
And that's part of the panache. You are buying an arch, a Keanu Reeves design. He had some input on it because
John Wick bike.
Right. Yeah,
there you go.
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, if you're going to spend $80,000 on this bike, Larry, you could just have, the vehicle support vehicle behind you could just have whatever, your jacket and snacks and beverages
cheating.
And all that kind of stuff.
That's cheating. You have to carry your stuff with you. But I'm sure they would throw in a backpack,
a $500 arch backpack
for the cost of the bike. Yeah. So that would probably solve that problem. Yeah. I don't know. When you get to this, I think if you have to worry about the price, you can't afford it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
This is not the.
And anybody have an idea like what the graphic on the side of the tank is? Is it just a design?
It's
like
somebody riding a motorcycle.
Oh wow, that's very abstract. That's very abstract.
Really?
Yeah.
How did you get?
How'd you get that?
Oh, I see. If you turn your head sideways.
Yeah. It's. Let me get back to it because I was looking at the other article.
Oh, is that what it says? Or is
No,
it maybe it's the
if you look
maybe
at
it's the
it's
logo.
the arch
Is that the
logo. So
arch?
if you look at the arch logo, it's
Ah,
somebody
okay.
like a helmet and shoulders, and they're kind of leaning a little
Ah,
bit, and then they have what looks
I
like
got it. I got it.
yeah.
You got it.
That's
So
pretty like sort of yin yang in there
yeah,
with
if you
the
look at the arch logo,
arch.
you could tell it's a motorcycle rider with some kind of design in the middle. And what hurts it on this one is I think it's just the lines of the tank kind of distorted a little bit more in the pictures. Straight on the
Okay.
straight on side version, you can see that's what that is. So
Now,
Really?
is Arch Motorcycles in St. Louis or something? Is that where Arch comes
No,
from?
no,
it's in California.
it came from the backbone of his first bike that they put out.
Okay.
Now that's that's going back to like a article I read a long time ago, and I'm not sure if that was Keanu saying that or somebody else saying that in the article, but I want to say that's where it came back from. All right. So let's kick over to the paddock. I know we got some big news there from Larry,
Yeah.
and then we're going to call it a night.
Okie dokie. So welcome to the paddock. This weekend was newsworthy in a couple of ways. Number one, Jorge Lorenzo calls it quits. Jorge was a outstanding MotoGP rider. I think he won 5 or 6 championships in his time. He was a dominant rider who won by getting out in front and then just riding consistent laps, lap after lap after lap, winning races. And he was able to beat the likes of Valentino Rossi and Dovizioso and Vinales. He was an outstanding rider. However, the last couple of years, he's had a number of very nagging injuries, which has interfered with his ability to ride. And he's also had trouble finding a motorcycle ride that he could excel in. He rode for Ducati for a few years, and just as he seemed to be getting the hang of the bike, he left Ducati and went over to Honda, riding with Marc Marquez, and he never got the handle on the Honda, and did very poorly this year, even before his injuries. But once he had his injuries, that was kind of the whole show. So he decided to retire this year. I think it was probably a good decision, and he did. This was his final race. The race itself, this is Valencia, the final MotoGP race of the year. And this was another pole position for the fabulous Fabian Quartararo, riding on the non-team, the Petrali's Yamahas. And he excelled in the qualifying. The Yamahas, both the factory and the ones he is riding, tend to be some of the best cornering bikes on the track. They just don't have the power of the Hondas and the Ducatis. So they have to make up time in their corners and then try to hold it down the straights. But the Ducatis and the Hondas really have the power, and this has been the shortcoming of the Yamahas all year. However, this was like the 6th pole this year for Quartararo, who is a newcomer to the MotoGP. So he's been an outstanding rider, and the young rider who's going to be challenging Marquez for dominance in the years to come. Not surprisingly, Marc Marquez started in the 2nd position on the grid. And Jack Miller, who's been an up-and-coming rider on a non-factory Ducati, was in 3rd on the grid. Maverick Vinales was in 4th and looked to be competitive in this race. And Morbidelli, the other non-factory Yamaha rider, was in 5th place, with Dovizioso in 6th. Rossi did not have a good practice, did not have a good qualifying, started down in 12th place, and was not likely to be on the podium in this race, hoping for a better next year for Valentino. There's actually some talk of whether or not he might do better in World Superbike, and whether he might be interested in riding it. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Valentino is going to be riding MotoGP next year. The race itself was not as exciting as the qualifying. Fabian Quartararo did briefly take first place, and Marquez had a relatively poor start. I think he dropped to 4th or 5th place at the start, but within the first 10 laps, Marquez moved up to 2nd place, and then was on the heels of Quartararo, was able to pass him, and he was not to be threatened again. So for the rest of the race, it was Marquez in 1st place, Quartararo in 2nd, Jack Miller in 3rd. Dovizioso slipped into 4th place. Alex Rins was in 5th. Vinales, who has been riding well lately and won, I think, last week's race, this week his old style seemed to come back. He kept moving backwards in the field. Ended up finishing in 5th place. He ended up finishing in 6th place. Rossi was only able to move from 12th place to 8th. So Jorge Lorenzo got a well-deserved round of applause for all of his accomplishments in MotoGP, and a tribute to his illustrious career, as he finished his last MotoGP race in 14th position. So that's it for this season. Marc Marquez really dominated for the year. I think he finished in either 2nd or 1st place in all of the races except one where he did not finish, the Moto America in Austin. So Marquez was completely dominant this year. Fabian Quartararo definitely was a contender. And Maverick Vinales also was competitive in some of the races this year. Hopefully next year Yamaha will get its act together, have a more powerful engine, continue to keep the handling that the bike has now or improve it, and they will be more competitive next year and make it much more of a horse race. But this year was a runaway for Marc Marquez, who is undeniably the most talented rider in the field at present. So that's it, folks. That's it for MotoGP this year. We'll look forward to the next season, and we'll see what happens. I'm sure it will be very interesting and competitive. So that's it. Thanks for listening. Yeah.
All right.
So just quickly, just some Moto America related stuff. Just since we're in the paddock. So one thing that was really cool, and some of you may have seen, that Wayne Rainey, who is the president of Moto America.
Yes, I saw that.
Right, was a world champion in his day, actually, right in 1993. Had a motorcycle accident while racing that ended his career. He is paralyzed from the middle of the chest down, and he recently got on a Yamaha R1, and was riding that bike. And I don't know
that was custom made by Yamaha for him.
Yeah, well, it was custom modified. Like it's basically like an R1 race bike that they modified, so he had all hand controls and stuff like that. Right. But he actually, I don't know all the details. I haven't followed up on the story yet. But that was leading up to, he had been invited to a special event at Suzuka where they wanted to have ex-world champions ride around Suzuka, whatever. And so that initial ride was a test for him to see if he was willing to do it. But evidently he did. He went to Suzuka and had a great time. So I don't know, it's just really cool just to see someone do that. And when you think that the only the only physical contact he's got that he's aware of on the bike is the handlebars. Mm-hmm. That there's no seat feel, no peg feel, no tank feel, nothing. So it's pretty interesting that he got a chance to do that. So that was really cool, very inspiring. And then the other thing for any Moto America fans is the most recent Moto America podcast. They interviewed Kyle Wyman, who I had interviewed a couple months ago on my podcast, but he's talking about spine surgery that he just had to correct problems he's had. Actually, all of last season, it turns out he was not talking about it much. He was kind of keeping it private, but he was having all kinds of difficulties with numbness and pain and stuff in various parts of his body because of an injury he suffered when he was 17 and he was doing flat track racing. He was practicing and had a high side where he ended up with the motorcycle landing on the back of his neck. And so he broke quite a few vertebrae. And so, I don't know, he's 29 now. So for the past 12 years, he's been dealing with the effects of that on and off. So he finally had surgery to correct that. It's just interesting to listen to his story. I mean, prior to this, I think this is the 17th surgery he's had to correct problems, injuries related to motorcycle racing. So, if you wanna be inspired by a guy who just loves to race and wants to just go out and do it, listen to that podcast. It's really quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, that's gruesome. 17 surgeries. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And for a guy that's 29 years old, but
yeah, that's a lot. But I mean, it's. You hear about these crazy stories of these guys getting accidents and then like helicoptering out, having surgery, then helicoptering back and racing the next day.
And
with
then, a broken wrist or foot or
like
something.
Nearly winning. I mean, it's insane. All right. Well, that's going to probably wrap it up. Thank you, gentlemen, for the paddock. Great news and info as always. Don't forget, you can follow us at Twitter at Throttle Show, Instagram Throttle Show, and Facebook at Throttled Podcast. We do broadcast live, except for the next 2 weeks. So that is, November 17th is today. So November 24th and December 1st. November 24th, there will definitely not be a show. December 1st, you're probably got a 70% chance that there will not be a show.
A live show.
A live show. There will be a recording that will come out and get produced once I get back. But there won't be a live show those 2 days. So if you can, get out there and ride. And if you can't and you're forced to, spend time with your family. And that should work out pretty good. But normally we do broadcast every Sunday on YouTube. And we put the link on Twitter and Facebook before the show starts. All right. We do like getting your feedback. So I know we've said a lot of stupid stuff, a lot of incorrect stuff. And if you want to call us out on it, feel free. Feedback at throttledpodcast.com. Or if you want to say that you like something on the show, that'd be great. I know we have one listener write in, and they asked if any of us were the old Motorcycle Mentor podcast, because our voices sounded familiar. And I don't know whose voice they're talking about. I doubt it's mine. But one of our voices sounded familiar from the old Motorcycle Mentor podcast. I think that guy was actually out of Huntsville, Alabama. But he did a.
Was it you, Larry?
It must have been. Yeah.
You do a good job of covering the accent.
Yeah. Well, that's just part of my broadcasting talent.
Awesome.
So, all right. Well, that's going to wrap it up, gentlemen. Sign off if you would.
Tom?
Sure. Everybody have a good week. Start your preparation for the holidays. And if possible, endure the cold and get out and ride. It's still fun in the cold.
There you go. Yeah, everybody. So enjoy the coming week and the holiday ahead. And whatever it is you're doing, motorcycle related, enjoy the heck out of it. And just shoot us an email or message. Let us know what you're doing.
Indeed. Everybody stay in touch. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We will try to get some podcasts out that are recorded. And make sure that you ride as much as you can and ride your own ride.
All right, everybody.
Kev?
Get out there and ride. If you are riding, ride safe. Please be safe over this holiday weekend. That's coming up here in the States, and I don't remember when Canada's Thanksgiving is. But just ride safe, take care of yourself, and we'll see you all next time. See ya. All right. So thank you everybody in the live show for hanging out. We really appreciate it. Everybody have a good night. Stay safe. Don't do anything that Larry wouldn't do. And we'll catch you all in a few weeks here. Hate that I know we've been inconsistent on our live streams, and I really hate about that. Just the fact that we're able to do a show when one of us isn't here is great, but the live stream is pretty dependent on all the multiple machines I have set up to do it. So thank you all for tuning in. Most of you are here every week, and we really appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving to you, and we will see you all once we get back from this little break. So have a good night. Have a great Thanksgiving. Bye, guys.